Okay, thank you. In the second or third week of April of 2004, I was approached by a person that we had, a developer, a small developer who we had financed and worked with in Brooklyn, and he told me that the Domino Sugar site was available, a site that we were familiar with, although never having been on the premise, but very familiar with that neighborhood, with that area. As Carol said, we've been involved in probably about 140,000 units that we've either financed or developed over a long span of time. And we had been particularly active in the Williamsburg community, having invested almost $250 million for the development of about 2,700 units, most of them, well, all of them, either within the Hasidic neighborhoods or the Hispanic neighborhoods. So when we saw that this opportunity became available, we said it is so critical for this neighborhood how this particular site be developed. And because we had the opportunity, we wanted to preemptively pick this up because we thought that this is something, we understood the community, we understood the stresses in the community, and we wanted to do something that really tied it into the fabric of the community. The community, which is one of the, at least according to the 2000 census tract, is one of the poorest in the city, with its median income at around $36,000 per household, as compared for a household of four, compared to $76,000 for the city as a whole. So we wanted to do something that was important, that would stem the tide of some displacement and do something and really create a mixed income, mixed use community that was just at least in my feeling, is just what New York City represents. So we didn't have much time to do this when we were offered this site. It was a broker down in Florida who was right out of, what's the Glengarry gun? You know, the real estate play? Glengarry, right, thank you. He was an old-time broker. He knew the Faneuil family, who at that time was head of the American Sugar complex. And he said, yeah, you could, so the deal was you could buy it, but you have a month to raise the money and close on the site. Now, this was April, I think mid-April of 2004. We had a month thereafter. Well, we actually, there was a frothy time in real estate, as you can recall, not a little bit different than it is now. And we weren't able to close in a month, but we did do this but by the end of June of that year. So it was quite an interesting, just an exercise, and one of the things we did do, of course, we looked at it, we must have drilled, I don't know how many test pits to see what the environmental factors were, but it was because it was a sugar factory for almost 150 years, the environmental was actually, the challenges were well known to us, and they were not that difficult, as difficult as initially we thought it might be. In the next period of time, we ran a charrette. A friend of mine, Alex Garvin, who some of you know, an old friend and colleague of mine, I asked him to, let's see what we're going to do with this incredible 11.5-acre site spanning almost 1,400 feet on the Brooklyn waterfront. And after doing the charrette, we chose Raphael Vanoli as the architect, and while the particular design that he presented, I don't think was workable on the site, but it showed an imagination and vigor of what we could do, and what an interesting architect brought to the site, and what kind of vision we could have. The other piece that was very important to us, during the same period of time, the Greenpoint Williamsburg rezoning was taking place. And this was excluded from that because at the time they started the rezoning, the Domino Sugar plant was actually being used, although in a very limited way. It actually closed its doors in, I believe it was January of 2004. The last piece of business to be done was actually making the small sugar packets. So when we got the building, when we found out about the building, which was April of that same year, it had since been vacated. except they said we want to take out some additional equipment. And if you saw from Fred's slide, you saw those big broken parts on the side. That was actually, I believe, created when they actually just pulled out some equipment, which I believe they shipped up to their Yonkers plant. So one of the key things for us was it was very much how do we deal with the affordable housing? What came across loud and clear during all the hearings of Williamsburg Greenpoint was a really tremendous need for affordable housing. So with that in mind, we purposely designed. The first thing we did was really to design what we thought would that could really serve that community needs, and which was really consummate with our, coincided with our mission, which is really to develop and build vibrant communities, and with paying a particular attention to the affordable housing needs. We came up with I think a mix of 660 units out of a total plan of about 2,200 units at the time. And the way we structured our low income, because even one of the great struggles when they did the Greenpoint Williamsburg was to come up with an affordable housing plan, but the affordability, the lowest income affordable housing was not actually affordable to most of the residents, given the very low median income to begin with. So we designed a plan that was, of the 660, about 100 units were very low income at 30% of median, or today around $25,000 income. Another 100 for seniors, the bulk of it for people earning 60% of median, and a certain slice for a little higher income people, but who still couldn't probably afford market rate housing, but we could locate at the site. So that's how we came with our overall plan, and that became for us a central organizing fact of how we would deal with all the ongoing negotiations and all the things that had to be done. At the end of 2005, I think it was May of 2005 actually, when the City Council finally approved the Greenpoint Williamsburg plan, they had I think it was a letter of agreement between the council and the mayor saying that even though the Domino site was not included in that plan, that there was their intention to, at some point, change the zoning from manufacturing to residential, if stipulated that it be a significant, I think that was the word was used, significant amount of affordable housing, and they would do it in an expedited manner. So I have to look up expedited. I don't have that definition of expedited in my dictionary, but nonetheless. So we went off and we started the design work. We actually, the first iteration of that, which really did not intend to preserve the central refinery building, but actually the southernmost building, which was, I think, one of the older buildings, actually an older building on the site. And this was in April of 2006, or about 2 years after we initially bought the property. We went through an enormous number of designs. And how do you move this along? I'm sorry. Here we go. Thank you. And we finally went before the planning department and presented a plan which showed that. And so this is the site. So the southernmost site was we thought we could preserve that, and we would build different housing structure, different structures along the other sites. At that same point, around that same time, there was a fire, if you recall, at the Greenpoint Terminal Market, which burnt, I think, one of the great industrial artifacts in the Brooklyn side. And so the Landmarks Commission, Bob Tierney, Patty Harris said, this is something we want to do, something that really incorporates the industrial sense of memory of New York in what we develop on the water site. And this was also a time, I might say, which is encouraging to us. This was also a time when the mayor and the planning department were very much interested in reinvigorating the waterfront. So we thought that we could do something great here. So in any event, when we approached we had this after 2 years and doing a lot of working, a lot of effort. We came up with this plan, And as soon as we heard, or we were told that, no, we'd really like you to alter the plan to account for this, they have a much more robust expression of what the history of the site is, it really led us back to the drawing board. And what we, as Bob and Frank have said, what we thought was, we had with this plan, we came up with something that was extraordinarily expensive from our point of view. Expensive in two respects. One, expensive in and of itself. It was probably, we believe it's much more expensive to do the preservation that we have to do than build the new housing. And two, the opportunity cost. This is, in fact, is our largest site that we had to develop. And so we would have to redistribute the density and really add on the density to the other sites to accommodate all of this financially. Nonetheless, we were able to come up with Fred Bland and with Raphael, we came up with, I think, an incredible plan which has great urban design assets. Let me just, and really sort of stitching the urban fabric into this. And the thing that, just a couple of expressions of that, as you can see, the street grid is extended to go right to the waterfront. And this is the first time, this will be the first time in 150 years that residents will have access to that waterfront. If you go along there now, as the other pictures showed, it's basically walled off except for some portion of it. So there are 5 streets that are connected to the waterfront. The open space, there's going to be 4 acres of open space. And I'm not sure how to work this, but all along the river, and then plus the perpendicular corridors to that. And the open space will expand onto Grand Ferry Park, which is the park on the right side here, the north of the site. And there'll be, so this will be a continuous park all the way through it. I think we have some images of that. And and we have incredible views, both of Midtown Manhattan and the Statue of Liberty. The architectural design is contextual with the neighborhood on Kent Street. Let me see if we have an image. This is one of our side streets, but on Kent Street, it will be, the height is, mimics the height of the buildings or of the neighborhood. And the buildings themselves, the taller buildings, are slender. They will maximize light and air, and it slenders it as we go up to the top. And as Fred has mentioned, the industrial artifacts inside, we hope to use those in various locations on the property. And we think that, so overall, let me just say what we have here. Let me just sort of summarize this. And this is the Kent Street view, and this is a refinery building going south. And this is the connection from Grand Ferry Park going on to the new Esplanade. This is about an acre of land in front of the refinery site. And this is another view of the Esplanade. So what we have in all is about 2,200 units of housing, of which 660 are planned to be affordable. There will be about 125,000 feet of retail. Most of the retail will be placed on Kent Street and on the perpendicular spurs that go into the site. There'll be 140,000 feet of community space in 3 of the floors of the refinery. That we have, there's space for a public school, plus we're planning other community facility spaces throughout the property. And there'll be 125 feet of retail, largely along Kent in the perpendiculars, and I think there's some space for waterfront restaurants. Also, the park itself will have 2 playgrounds. It will have an ice skating rink and various places to congregate on it. Finally, let me just say one of the, I don't know how many, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, I went up to with Raphael Vianoli to go up to teach Alex Garvin's class up in Yale. And one of the questions that was asked of me was, what really distinguishes this as, why are you calling it yourself an affordable housing developer? What distinguishes it from it? And basically I said, well, because we've done 30% of housing, it had to do with, and created that mix of housing. I found that answer at the time to be quite unsatisfying to me. But 7 years later, and I think Donald Elliott, who testified, sort of stated it in the best way. He said there's going to be 1,000 decisions as developer as to what you're going to have to do, and there are various decisions on the way. And one of the things, if you have a developer such as ourselves, that we're going to try to make the right decision. So for us, the right decision, as we went through a very arduous approval process, was every different agency that we had to go through has its own agenda. And for us, the thing that we kept on the forefront, and what we wanted, we didn't want to accommodate ourselves to, but rather have them accommodate themselves to us, to this agenda, was this important affordable housing component. So with that, we're still about a year or so away from construction start as we see it, and we look forward very much to that day. So thank you very much.